Hello, everyone. Good afternoon, and welcome to another IABA Ireland chapter event. We're very grateful that you were able to join and able to attend our webinar today. Pardon. Today we bring you Emal Bariali, and Emal Bariali is going to talk to us about mastering different skills across the different stages of a business analyst career. Let me talk to you about the agenda that we have for today. So as usual, I will be quickly introducing the speaker. I know you didn't join to hear me talk or to see my face, so I promise I will be short. I will be introducing the speaker. We will have the presentation itself, led by Emal, and then at the end of the session, we will have a short period for the for some Q&A. Just to let you know that, as usual, and in case you're new to our events, you won't be able to share your camera or to speak. However, you have a chat facility. You can use the general chat facility just to make comments during the session. And there's a specific QA section that if you have questions during the Emal's presentation, please drop your question there, and it will be addressed either during the presentation or at the end of the session at the appropriate time. Okay, now let's talk a little bit. Enough of governance. Let's talk a little bit about Emal. So, who is Emal? You may ask. He's a senior VA. He's been doing this for over 17 years, which is a long time. He's also the founder of BA Blocks, bablocks.com, where he coaches and mentors the next generation of BAs. In terms of learning and education, Emal has a master's degree in information systems, a bachelor's degree in information technology, and also a post-diploma in software and database development. So it's quite a resume. Emal had me on the 17 years of experience. I have roughly half of that, and I can only imagine the things that Emal already been through. Unfortunately, we only have an hour, but I'm sure Emal would have a lot of stories that he could share with us. That's it on my side. Emal, thank you so much, and the floor is yours. Thank you.
Thank you for the wonderful introduction, Joao. I will grab the screen and we're going to dive right in to the conversation here, and I'll just click on share. Welcome, folks. My name is Emal. I've been doing this for 17 years, as Joao mentioned, and today we're going to be doing a bit of a deep dive into the business analysis skill set. And because of the fact that I don't like to keep you waiting or to really kind of bury the lead, as they say in some industries, I have given you the answer to the question that we were looking to address right up front. So if you can see my screen right now, you basically are seeing the skills that we're going to be talking about today. So I just do a quick confirmation to make sure that everybody can see my screen, and that the slide deck is coming through clearly. If you could just give me a quick thumbs up on that. Yep, we got a thumbs up. Okay, we're good to go. So not to bury the lead or to keep you waiting, I'm going to give you an overview of what the three different stages of your skill set are, and what skills you should be focusing on at each of the different stages. The three folks that you see here in the picture here, you're going to get introduced to as we're going through here. So Justin, the junior analyst, is the analyst that we use to kind of describe to folks about what a junior analyst would be doing typically in their career. So we essentially have these three different archetypes. that we call them, business analyst archetypes, that we use to try to describe people at different stages of their careers. Okay, Justin, the junior analyst here, works on existing systems, and we'll talk more about this. But the type of work that Justin does is that he handles the enhancement requests and the bug fixes that are coming in for the existing systems that he supports. Okay. He is what I would refer to as a stage one business analyst. And at a stage one business analyst, there are a certain skill set that I recommend you learn as a business analyst to make sure that you can perform well at that stage. Okay. The skills at that stage really are centered around making sure that you can handle the work that is assigned typically to a more junior business analyst in large enterprise scale environments. That has really a lot to do with something that's called incident management. And incident management is essentially the process by which the analyst finds out that there's an issue and tries to resolve that issue. There is an agile process that you should really be trying to adopt, because at a junior level, based on the type of work that you're doing, okay, it is typically you're releasing your bug fixes and a lot of the enhancements that you're making through a bit of an agile process. And then skills number 3 to 8 really are the skills that allow you to essentially get the job done. All right. And so I'll let you read them right now, but we're going to go through these in more detail. That's Justin at stage 1. All right. Ingrid, the intermediate analyst at stage 2, has a bit of a different job, even at the same company. Even though she's also a business analyst, just like Justin, at the intermediate level, what Ingrid does is that she actually helps to start delivering new solutions into the application landscape that her company has. All right. Whereas Justin, again, we see here the big difference is that Justin here works on existing systems. Ingrid helps to deliver new systems. Okay, that's the major difference between stage 1 and stage 2. And the skill set at stage 2 is a little bit more advanced than the skill set at stage 1. All right. Because of the fact that the type of work that Ingrid does requires a lot more stakeholder analysis and engagement work, one of the very first skills that Ingrid has to learn has to do with stakeholder analysis. Justin doesn't deal with the same number or the same seniority level of stakeholders. And we'll see this a little bit later on. But Ingrid does, because delivering a new system typically requires a higher level of understanding of stakeholders than just supporting existing systems. All right. The rest of the skills that Ingrid needs are really focused around delivering a new solution. There's a task called discovery analysis or discovery work that allows the analyst to understand what's happening and to get a sense of what the future state should look like before they start producing what is referred to as business requirements. And once they produce the business requirements, they take it one level deeper by turning it into a product backlog and producing what are called functional specifications, right? That is stage 2. And you can see that for somebody like Justin to move into the position of somebody like Ingrid, the skill set is a little bit different, because the type of work and the amount of responsibility that they're given is significantly different. Okay, so all of this making sense so far? And this is just the introduction. We're going to get into a much deeper conversation about all of this in a little bit, but give me a quick thumbs up. And if you do have questions, please start putting them into the chat there, and we're going to get to them. Stage number 3 is a little bit more advanced even than stage number 2, because Shauna, the very senior analyst, has gone through stage number 1 and stage number 2. And the type of work that Shauna is assigned to goes above and beyond even what Ingrid does, because at a very senior level, what Shauna helps to do is to work with senior and executive management to help justify the projects that Ingrid helps to support, right? And so the skill set here, the very first skill that you're going to see here, again, has to do with what? It has to do with stakeholders, because again, Shauna is given much higher responsibilities, and Shauna is put in front of executives and very senior management inside of the company to be able to have the types of conversations that she needs to have to help them understand whether the system that they are considering building is even worth it. Does it even make sense for the company to actually do that? And the way the skills that Shauna uses to help her achieve that goal has to do with making sure that she understands executive stakeholders. So there's some advanced stakeholder analysis and management going on there. There is some deep current state analysis happening. There is quite a bit of future state design work happening. And then it's a conversation around cost benefit analysis, business cases, and potentially number 6 here, having to do with vendor management. So if you don't know what an RFP or an RFI is, I can explain that to you. But there is possibly in Shauna's world, there's some vendor engagement to engage third-party vendors as part of the process of helping the company justify and plan the solutions. So that, folks, is essentially the 3 different stages of your business analysis career. And those are essentially the skills that you need. So now, how do I know all of this, right? This is, again, I didn't want to keep you waiting till the end to actually deliver on what it is that I promised. So I wanted to just put this out here. But this is essentially the conclusion of the conversation. All right. So for those of you who are looking for the short answer, this is your answer, right? For those of you who want to understand a little bit more of the why behind this happens, stick around, because that's what we're about to get into. Now, how I actually know this is because I have been doing this job since 2005. Okay, so I've essentially, as a summary of my career, I've done well over 20 projects over the 17 years. I've served over 9 clients and employers. And before all of that, I spent 7 years getting formally educated as a business analyst. And between 2005 and 2022, I managed to increase my business analysis income by 5 times. So I started here at one income level, and I ended essentially here in 2022, making 5 times the income that I was making when I had first started. All right. If I had to put my resume on a single page, it would look something like this. And you can start to see that since starting in 1999 to 2022, I've kind of gone through these different stages of my own career myself. And the experiences that I've had, I've kind of color-coded these experiences to start to give you an idea of the type of work that I was doing at each of these different stages. Okay, so when I first started my career, really in 2005, I was at a very junior level, and I stayed at a bit of a junior level for quite a few years until I could get myself into the more of the intermediate to senior level. But if you just take a quick look at my projects here, you'll start to see the type of projects that I was doing. And you can start to see that my seniority level lines up pretty well with the type of work that I was doing. Because at a junior level, I was doing a lot of I was doing a lot of process improvement work. And I was much more of a business process analyst for the first little bit of my career, with this exception here, this proposal system implementation, but we can talk about that. But I was doing quite a bit of process design work early in my career. And I really felt like I started to get into the intermediate stage of my career when I started to do more of the system implementation work. And I felt like I was getting much more into the senior part of my career when I started to do strategy and architecture work. Okay. And I can talk about each of these projects in a lot more detail to actually show you, and not necessarily to show you the deliverables, but show you examples of the types of deliverables that I was asked to produce at each of these different stages. What happened in my career is that once I hit a certain level of seniority, that happened around 2012, felt like I had hit a certain level of seniority where I decided in my career that I no longer wanted to be a permanent employee, and I made a switch into business analysis consulting and started serving clients instead of having a single employer. Okay, that really threw me deep into stage 3 of my career, and I've implemented multiple projects for the clients that I've had. Now, that's essentially, I show you this because the different stages that require different skill sets, but they also require something that I'm going to be talking a lot more about, is your ability to produce value. Your ability to produce value as a business analyst is the single most important thing that helps you to get progression in your career. Okay, but we'll talk more about that. This is how it's got in my career. Part of the other way that I know that these are the right stages and the right skills is because of the fact that as an education provider, as an IIBA endorsed education provider, the IIBA also provides quite a bit of guidance to trainers like us on what their expectations are of business analysts at each of the different 3 stages. Okay, and so there's quite a bit of guidance that they give around analysts who they consider to be at level 1, level 2, and level 3. If you have looked at the BA BOK, you'll know that there are a lot of tools and techniques. And so what we're doing as a training provider is that we are aligning our own experiences with the industry standards that are being set by the IIBA. And we're creating a program to help teach analysts do this work in a way that's fully aligned with the industry, based on our experience, and with industry best practices as defined by the IIBA. Okay, if I was to kind of line up the different stages with what the IIBA considers to be level 1, 2, and 3, our stages would essentially line up with the IIBA's guidance in the following way. And Joao, I'll mention that if we have questions or if folks have their hands up, feel free to, if it's related to what it is that I'm talking about, feel free to just interrupt me and bring it up, and I can address some of those questions as we're going through.
Actually, Emal, now that you mention it, maybe we have 1, 2, or even 4
Okay.
notes. So is that a good time?
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely.
Brilliant. So I'll start with the first one. This relates to the first diagram shown, and this is more of a comment. It states that the diagram seems to be aimed. Thank you. The diagram seems to be aimed or towards a BA working within a software development lifecycle. The note is it would be interesting to see what it looks like for a BA that works outside of that area, for example, on pure business related projects?
We can, okay, I mean, that is a possibility for us to talk about, but let me share, and I think I can prepare some materials to help you understand that. What I would say that is, if you're working on pure business projects, you're typically, it's going to be very difficult for you to get progression in your career if you're working purely on business related projects, because most business analyst jobs require some quite heavy understanding of systems, right? So I've done quite a bit of just straight process improvement work at a junior level in my career. But we can talk more about that. I'm perhaps maybe in another live session, I can give you examples of what it looks like to run purely just like a business process improvement without a systems component. But I don't focus on that because the value of that is relatively low compared to the value of you being able to match up a business process with the actual system functionality. That's where the majority of the demand is for business analysts.
Thank you, Emal. The next one is it's basically asking what else is out there after stage 3? Is there a stage 4, or are we talking about starting doing something different?
Stage 4, I mean, that's an excellent question, because I am really at stage 4 now, right? After having done consulting for about 10 years, my stage 4 is creating a training program that teaches people how to do this same job. So once you hit stage 3 of your career, you have a number of different options available to you. And what you'll start to see is that once somebody gets experienced enough, stage 4, you can take it in a number of different directions, right? I've chosen to take my stage 4 really in a direction that helps me kind of teach you folks how to do this job well. But there are a ton of other options that are available to you, because based on the career strategy you've chosen for yourself, your stage 4 might be for you to get into a vice president related role. There are different directions you can go in your career, and we're going to talk a little bit more about that. But so hopefully that answers your question, is that really I'm kind of hitting the end of my stage 3 and I'm entering into stage 4, but there is a stage 4 once you hit that kind of the top end of your stage 3 career.
Thank you, Emal. Time for one last before we resume. Thank you. The next one is asking if you feel that in some cases a business analyst could be split across the all stages. This person finds themselves working on designing and delivering solutions to solve problems, and then also designing and delivering new systems and helping to justify and plan for new solutions. So a jack of all trades, basically.
Yeah, so is there an analyst that does all 3 of these at the same time? Short answer is yes, absolutely. Especially in smaller companies where there isn't enough work to do on the front end of things. If Shauna, Ingrid, or if Shauna was working for a smaller company, she may spend 30% of her time doing this type of work, another 50% of her time doing this type of work, and possibly 20% of her time doing this type of work. So yes, it's very possible, and it's quite common in most mid-sized organizations to have an analyst work across all 3 stages. But once you start working for larger organizations, that becomes less and less common, because once your organization, if you're working for a very big company, typically this stage of analyst is split up into its own department, and these 2 different stages typically become a different department. So it all depends on the size of the organization that you're working for, but it's definitely possible.
Thank you, Emal. That's all for now. Thank you.
Okay, yeah, let's move forward. But we can come back to any of these as we're talking about, right? Where we kind of left us off is where we said that the reason why I know that these are the right skills is because, again, I've been doing this for a long, long time. And we also have the guidance of the International Institute of Business Analysis kind of helping us make sure that what we're teaching is the right thing to teach. And so one of the things that we're doing and providing is that we're actually giving you a detailed breakdown of what the BA box says the skill sets are, so that you have a very clear inventory of what the IBA says, and then we kind of match that up with the different levels that we have and with the personal experiences that I myself have had. All right. Now, key takeaways. If there is nothing else that you learned today, you should learn at least bullet points number 1 and number 2. You should at least understand those in quite a bit of detail. Okay. Point number 1 is that you spending a lot of time doing the same job isn't really progression, right? There are a lot of business analysts who make the mistake of thinking that they can just spend time to gain seniority. Career progression is all about value. It has very little to do with time. And I'll illustrate that for you in a minute. Number 2 is that this value that you're going to be using to progress your career is you're able to increase that value through skills development and by choosing a specialty. Okay. The third point, I'm going to keep this here because this is a much longer conversation. We may not necessarily get to the point of actually building a strategy in this talk. But if we do, you have to make sure that whatever skills and whatever specialty that you have chosen for your career is in line with the rest of your strategy. And so what do I mean by the rest of your strategy? Because I'm a very strategic thinker when it comes to my career. Okay. And today, our conversation has a lot to do with this value aspect. And I'm going to talk a little bit about the job market too, but our main focus really here is on the main branch, is how do you use your skills and your specialty to deliver value to achieve progression. I'm going to show you the possible career trajectories that Justin can have, right? We looked at all 3 of them earlier, but let's take Ingrid and Shauna out of the picture and let's just take a look at Justin by himself. Justin, being a couple of years into his career, has a few different options. Okay. He can follow what I like to call the value-driven path to progression by following in Ingrid's footsteps and learning to do the type of work that Ingrid was doing and increasing the value that he's providing to the organization. Because a company that the risks and the difficulty of delivering new systems is much higher than the defects and enhancements on existing systems, right? If you look at it from your company's point of view, doing this type of work, doing bug fixes and doing enhancements on existing systems is relatively easy and very low risk for the company. And that means that it's relatively low value work. What Justin is doing by stepping into Ingrid's shoes is that he's increasing the value of the work that he's doing. And so it's a value-based approach. And the one trajectory he can essentially have is if he takes the value-based approach to progression, he's constantly trying to figure out where the high value work is and how he can get himself upskilled to be able to deliver for that high value work. Okay. Justin, now this, whether he takes this path or not, depends on a number of different factors, because Justin, even though he has may have the potential, may not have the drive. Justin may not have the desire, right? And Justin may choose to take not the value-based path to progression, but the time-based path to progression. And what does that mean? Well, all Justin has to do to take the time-based path to progression is just continue doing what he's doing. And, after 3 or 4 years, he will likely get enough increases in his income and in his job title to be considered an intermediate. And if he just continues doing what he's doing, the same thing without adding any extra value, he'll eventually earn the title of a senior business analyst inside of his company, right? Doesn't necessarily have to put any more effort into the value that he's providing. But this version of career development poses many risks, and it does not give you the opportunity, right? Earlier, when I talked about how I increased my income by 5x, Justin has no chance of being able to do that with his own career if he decides to take the time-based path to progression, right? If this is Justin's career strategy, there's no way that his income is going to 5x from here to here. He would be lucky if it doubles from there to there, right? And so you have to understand that earlier when I said that there's really only 2 major takeaways, is that career progression, if you take the time-based value or the time-based strategy to your career progression, you're doing yourself a disservice, right? You have to make sure that as an analyst who is interested in progression, that you're always looking at things from the perspective of value. Okay, I had a conversation with a recruiter just yesterday, and I want to walk you through this because it actually has my favorite word about progression in there. All right. And so I'll walk you through this a little bit just so you can start to see how an analyst that really has been doing this for a long time thinks strategically about their careers. Okay. And this was literally just yesterday. I wasn't originally putting this in, but I had a conversation yesterday with a recruiter, and this recruiter approached me and said, "Hey, I'm looking for a lead business systems analyst to work for one of our clients located in Toronto. Please send me your resume." And he's saying resume to share more details, but he was saying, "Send me your resume so I can share more details with you." Now, if you as a kind of beginner level analyst get a message like this from a recruiter, there's some chance that you're actually going to just send your resume over, but I didn't do that, right? I said, "Hello, what are we looking at in terms of hourly rate for this role?" I didn't send him my resume. In a typical recruiter response, he says the rate is open. I can go at your most competitive rate. And to an outsider or an inexperienced person, this might seem like a bit of a normal conversation, but I'll explain to you what's going on, the underlying factors, if you're thinking about your career strategically, why you would want to have the type of conversation that I had. And in response to that, see, what's happening here, what has happened here so far is that he's asked me for my resume. I've ignored his question and I've said, "How much are you willing to pay me?" And he's saying, "I'm not going to tell you," essentially is what this response is, right? He's saying, "I'm not going to tell you, you tell me what you want to charge." And I have to essentially tell this recruiter, "Look, the number I'm going to quote you," I'm warning him ahead of time that the number I'm going to quote you is well above what your might be able to expect within this market, because my rates are quite a bit higher than the market rates that you're likely to see. Are you sure that your client, right? Is your client in need of someone with my level of experience? And then I ask him again, do you have a cap on the rate? right? And he gives in and says, yeah, it's $100 an hour. And then I respond, I have to turn this job down because that rate is far below what I charge. And I essentially told him what my rate was. And I said, this one is not a good fit. But the most important thing that I left this person off with is to say, keep my resume on file in case you find higher value opportunities, right? I'm not relying on the fact that I've done this for 17 years. I'm not relying on the fact that somebody's given me the title of a senior analyst. I'm relying purely on the amount of value I can provide. And we have right now the $100 an hour that's being offered versus what it is that I charge my clients. We have a mismatch. And this doesn't mean that I take it personally and I say, oh no, my rates, it's not a personal issue. It's just a mismatch in the marketplace between the value that I'm looking to provide and the value that this client needs. And if I was to kind of break this down for you even further, I mean, there's a lot of science that goes behind this type of a negotiation, right? If I was to kind of match up, if I was to explain to you why it is that I spoke to the recruiter in that way, it has a lot to do with the job market that I'm in and my understanding, a clear understanding of the value that I provide into that job market. Because I know that stage 1 business analysts are at a certain income bracket, stage 2 analysts are at a certain bracket, and stage 3 analysts are at a different bracket. I understand my job market very well. And so understanding that job market and understanding the value that I'm providing in that job market is what allows me to have a conversation like this. This takes a few minutes from start to end. It was, just a couple of minutes of a conversation. And we now know that we're not a good fit. Now, I share this with you because a lot of these things that I have just talked about are part of your career strategy. So if you haven't thought about your career strategically, you don't have the clarity to have a conversation in that way. You don't have a clear idea of the value that you're producing. You don't have a clear idea of the job market that you're functioning in. And it becomes a very difficult conversation to have. It's a very easy conversation for me because, again, I think very, very strategically about my career, as I said earlier, right? I have a very clear idea of the value that I produce based on the skill sets and the specialty that I have invested in over the last 17 years, over the last 25 years. I have a very clear idea and I have access to a job market that has a certain amount of demand in it for those skills and the specialty that I've built up. And I'm very good at determining the fit between my skills and my specialties and what the market demands. I understand my value and I understand my job market. And that is what allows me to position myself this way in my career. All right. And I share that with you because understanding the job market is almost as important as you building up the skills. Because if you build up, unless you can have alignment between your skill set and what the demand is in your job market, you're never going to be in a position where you can increase your value. If you learn a skill set that has you specializing in, let's say, capital markets, and that becomes part of your skills, but part of your specialty becomes learning about banking or learning about capital markets, but you don't have access to a job market that has that kind of skills and demand, you're not going to be able to achieve proper progression in your career. And so when I say think strategically about your career, it means that you have to understand the major factors of your career, and you have to understand how you're going to position yourself based on these 5 major factors. We're not going to get into these ones in this conversation because our focus really is a lot more on the value part of it, but you should understand that building a career strategy, you have to adopt this type of a mindset to be able to implement a good career strategy. And part of the reason why I've been able to achieve the success that I've had in my career is because I've always thought very strategically about my career. I've thought very strategically about the skills, and I'm very picky about the tools and the techniques that I choose to learn and the ones that I choose to reject from my toolbox, because I think very strategically about my career. Okay. Now, going back to the skills, let's go back to the skills. The skills that I recommend for business analysts. Is this the only option for you to learn? No, not necessarily. Because if you are, for example, once you reach Ingrid's level and you realize, you know what, I'm not really interested in doing the type of work that Shauna does. You don't necessarily have to tie your progression to this. The reason why I show you these 3 different stages is to give you a clear example of what your career could look like. But once you hit this stage here, you actually have quite a few other options that you can go into. All right. I don't have that material prepared for you in detail yet, but that's part of what's going to be coming as part of our career progression playbook, where I'm going to actually walk you through a number of different strategies that are available to you, depending on the kinds of decisions you choose to make for the rest of these different factors. So, for example, if your personal motivator is job title, your career strategy should be very different than mine. And that's a perfectly legitimate thing to want out of your career, to say, I want to become a director or I want to become a vice president. That's perfectly legitimate to have that desire. But you have to understand that if that is your true desire in your business analysis career, you can't follow the same strategy that I did, because my primary drivers are income and satisfaction. And I have made the career moves that I've made based on my own personal motivations. Okay. I have made decisions around the kind of relationships I want to have with my employer. If you're interested in pursuing job title, you do not go contract. You remain permanent, right? Start to see that your personal motivator affects the kind of relationship that you need to have with your employer, and you have to make sure that you have the natural aptitudes to chase after the job title. Typically, if you're more systems oriented, it's harder to get a job title. If you're more people oriented, it's very easy. Not say it's very easy, but it's much easier for you to climb the organization to achieve the type of job title that you want, right? All of these different factors come into play when you're strategizing. And this is what it means to have a strategic mindset about your career. So even though we came here to talk about skills, what I really want you to do, right? We came here to talk about stages and skills. What I really want you to do is to adopt a strategic mindset for your career so that you can achieve the outcomes that you're looking for. The key lessons here, again, as I said, is that you should never fall into the trap of thinking that spending more time doing the same job is going to help you do that, because it's not. Okay, there's quite a bit that I can talk about here, but Joao, maybe we can take a few questions and see if there are, one of the directions I can take this is to talk a little bit more about some of the details of how skills kind of break down into different categories and how specialties break down into different categories. That's one way we could take the direction of the conversation. I can ask you, we could do a little pop quiz and take a look at whether you think you have a strategic mindset or not, right?
Very well. Emal, if I may, we have indeed two questions. Can I proceed?
Mhm.
Um, the first one is, of course, it's pretty much related to what you just mentioned. Do you feel that a BA should aim to be an expert in an industry or domain, for example, banking, energy, life science, etc.?
Excellent question. And that actually leads us into the conversation around specialty. So the question is should we specialize? Should you become an expert? My short answer is yes. Because the benefits of specialization are huge. If you recall earlier when we talked about your strategy, when we talked about value, there's a certain skill set that you have, right? And your skill set kind of breaks out into these different categories, and it kind of looks like this. But another huge part of the value that you're adding into the job market, to your clients or to your employer, is by learning the inner workings of a system, a specific system. I've given a couple of examples here, like Workday HCM. If you're interested in becoming a domain expert in the HR domain, you want to make sure that you're learning Workday as the human capital management system. So the short answer is yes. The longer answer is that if we were to go back to our strategy roadmap here, right, you should choose, sorry, let me got to the wrong one. Short answer is yes. Should you specialize? Yes. But what you should specialize in has to do with this aspect. What job markets do you have access to? Because if you start to specialize in something that is going to give you satisfaction and is not aligned to the job market, then you're not going to achieve progression. Okay, specialize in something that's in demand in the job markets that you have access to. For me, here in Toronto, if I was going to start specializing, it would be in banking, it would be in insurance, it would be in the capital markets. And if I was willing to move out to Calgary, it would probably be in the energy sector. But the market I'm in may be very different than the market you're in that the market you have access to.
Thank you, Emal. We have two more questions. Should we proceed with the questions right now?
Absolutely.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
So the first one is specific. So it's a person saying that they want to specialize in process optimization and automation, and their motivators, their motivations are income and satisfaction. So the question is, what effective strategies? What are some effective strategies to identify clients looking for this specialization? I'm assuming this is how to get access to the market. That's my interpretation.
So if you could just repeat
Sorry,
the area that
absolutely.
they want to specialize in.
Yes. Process optimization and automation.
Understood. So if you are interested in process optimization and automation, I'm going to go back to here. Let me go to the picture that describes that the best. What you want to do is, first of all, you want to make sure that from your core BA skills, that you've done enough process design work to understand how to do process design. So this process aspect of the system comes in very handy for you. If you want to do process automation, there is a set of software suites out there that do nothing but automate processes. So for example, there is one piece of software I've worked with in the past is called UiPath. The purpose of a piece of software like UiPath is to automate processes as much as possible. So your strategy is that you want to get into a specialty. You want to look at systems that are like UiPath. That's probably the most popular one today. You want to learn a system like that, and then you want to learn how to apply the capabilities of that system to the process skills that you've learned to try to automate as much as possible. And if income is your primary motivator, then you probably also, once you've learned the tool, once you've learned how to do good process design, once you've learned UiPath really well, a big part of what you should consider as the next part of your strategy is going from permanent to contract. And that's really kind of the optimum way that you can essentially achieve your career goals by doing those three things in more or less in that order.
Thank you, Emal. The last one that we have right now, I promise. Do you think that we can use our BA skills and techniques within any domain or industry to be successful? As in, for example, this person moved between different areas, corporate to business registry, life sciences, energy domains, and this person found that using their BA skills and techniques has enabled them to quickly learn each domain.
Absolutely. I would say that you are probably the rarest kind of analyst that exists out there, because that you're following essentially the exact pattern that I followed. If you look at my actual LinkedIn profile, and I can pull that up really quickly to show you folks how that is exactly the pattern that my own career has followed here. Okay, I'll pull that up really quickly just to show you right here that if you master the core business analysis skills and you learn and you're good at learning new domains really quickly, you can implement the strategy that I've had in my own career. And if I go to my experience section here, you'll see that I started off my career in government. Then I moved into the nuclear industry. So this company used to build nuclear power plants, essentially. Then I moved into insurance. Then I moved into education. Then I moved into benefits. And then I went back into benefits after taking a break, back to education. Then I went into mutual fund software development. Then I went into university environment, which is different from the education that I've had here. Then I went into consulting, working with a consulting company into the energy sector, working for a large energy producer. Back to insurance, back to software, but different types of software, and in the HR domain. So my career, I've chosen not to specialize by domain or by system. But what I've chosen to specialize by is by taking on only large scale projects. So if you go through my own career history, what I do is I try to stick as much as I possibly can to doing this kind of work. That's essentially now my specialty, is that I do implementations, but if you look at the last couple of contracts that I've taken on, has everything to do with cost benefit analysis. I mean, one of the projects that I can show you here, if I go back to my resume, is that even though I was working here, I worked on a business case, but I didn't execute on the project. I was there when they were executing on the project, but I helped them do the business case, and then I handed this project off to the team for execution, and I moved on to the next thing, right? My specialty in many ways, if you want to think about it that way, is to do business case work, less implementation. I do zero support at this stage of my career. Close to zero support, I should say. So perfectly legitimate strategy for you to do that, especially if you're good at learning new domains, is the short answer.
Thank you, Emal. Meanwhile, 3 other questions popped up,
Sure, sure.
but are you sure?
Yeah, absolutely. I've spent I can spend another 15 to 20 minutes even if we have questions
Okay.
coming in to answer them.
Okay, fair enough. So thank you for that. Appreciate it. Um, so do you have any tips or tricks on how to learn new domains? I'm assuming besides getting the job, of course.
Learning new domains is a bit of a skill in itself. So I have a pattern that I follow. So one tip I would give you is that you have to approach your clients in a way where you're demonstrating to them that you're doing your best to learn. I actually might have a YouTube video that I had published. Let me share. It's not specifically about new domains, but it actually talks about the concept of a grace period and how to use your grace period to try to learn your domain as quickly as possible. So I'll try to pull up that video as I'm answering this question. If I was to say the way that I learn new domains really quickly is just through sheer effort. I put a ton of effort into making sure that I can understand my customer's world as quickly as possible. But it's very stressful. It's a very, very stressful strategy to follow. If you're constantly going from domain to domain to domain, you're going to be stressed out probably for about the first month of every client engagement that you have. And that stress is just purely because you're trying to just understand what your customers are even saying. Okay. So I'll pull up that YouTube video really quickly here, and I'll share that one video with you that talks about the concept of a grace period. But I think we could probably do another whole session about how to learn new domains really quickly, because I do have a checklist that I go through. I try to learn processes, and with ChatGPT now that's become much easier. Learn about the business processes, learn about the different jobs that people are doing within that new domain, learn about the different data objects that are involved, and then try to figure out what the common pain points are in a situation like that. So if I was to give you an example, let's say I am thrown into a world where I have to now deal with a sales process or a sales system. The way that I'm going to approach that is that I'm going to try to figure out who are the different people involved within the sales division, what are their specific jobs, and I have a strategy that I do to figure that out. What kind of work does this person do on a day-to-day basis? Gives me a very clear idea of the types of tasks that they perform. Then I start to kind of go down into the data level to understand their data. So if we have the opportunity, I think we should probably have another workshop on just that subject, because you can have a strategy, but I'll tell you that if you want to be a generalist business analyst, you have to be prepared to deal with quite a bit of stress. At the beginning, I enjoy learning new domains, and so I'm willing to tolerate the stress, and I've kind of built up the strategies that I have around that. I do not recommend becoming a generalist business analyst for most people, I would say. So I'm going to talk about, and so here, let me share 2 videos in the chat here. Let's take that out. I think I have access to the chat here. I'm going to share this video here that talks about why you should or should not be a generalist BA. And I'm going to share this one other video where I talk about the concept of a grace period. So as a generalist BA, you should understand that there's a certain grace period that you do have, and I'll share that right in the chat as well. That video right there, those 2 videos will start to give you an idea of whether you should become a generalist BA or not, because I go into quite a bit of detail about what it takes to learn the domain. And quite frankly, I filmed those videos as I was struggling to learn a new domain. And so it was very top of mind for me. And that's when I recorded those videos. Any other questions, comments? Sorry, I think you're cutting out a little bit there, Joao. Let me just you've cut out a little bit. I did not hear I heard very little of what you said. For the folks that do have to drop, I would say that one of the things that you want to make sure that you do is to consider attending day one. That starts on July 15th. Day one essentially is our first day that we're going to kind of kick off a bit of a free learning event for everybody. And you have to be registered to be able to attend that. All right. So at BA Blocks, what we're planning on doing is on July 15th, we're going to kick off totally free 7-day learning event where we cover a lot of the core skills in quite a bit of detail, and we don't ask you to pay us anything for it. Okay. But to register, make sure you head over to bablocks.com/1 to make sure that you're registered, because if you're not, you won't get the enrollment instructions. And so we have a few hundred people that are registered for this right now. I want to encourage you to go and do that. Joao, I don't know if you're back or not.
I'm here. Can you hear me now?
I can hear you now. Yes.
Okay. Something, of course, it had to happen now. Thank you so much, Emal. There's three questions there, but maybe it's something that you want to address. You want to, as I mentioned, invite people to go to the session on the July 15th, or do you think
I can address the questions? Yeah, that I would say do this regardless, but I'm definitely, I still have another 15 minutes. I can address them. Yeah. Thank
you. I think some of them are kind of superseded by what you just mentioned, but I'll let you decide. Here it goes. If a VA wants to specialize in banking and insurance, what domains or tools should that VA learn?
If you want to get into, so banking and insurance are two different sectors. And so I would say, first of all, choose either banking or insurance. And once you're in insurance, you have a lot of different options of the types of insurance that you want to specialize in. If you are interested in getting into insurance, we can do a quick bit of, I would say here, depending on which jurisdiction you're in, you want to possibly start to learn the domain knowledge within your area of insurance. So for example, if I was in Toronto and being in Toronto, if I really wanted to get a lot of domain knowledge around insurance, what I would do is I would go to the Insurance Institute of Canada. And what I would do is I would consider understanding more about the insurance industry by possibly looking at what it is that they have to offer. Not necessarily getting certified, but if you need to understand the insurance domain, you probably have an institute like this in your country that teaches the insurance domain of your country to the professionals in your profession. One of the things that I did do in my own career, I'll show you an example. I didn't do this for insurance, but I did this for the capital markets because I was very interested in getting into the capital markets domain at a certain point in my career. So you'll probably notice if you look at my LinkedIn profile is that I took a 4-month break to pursue what's called the Canadian Securities course. And if you Google this, you'll understand that the Canadian Securities course is the domain knowledge. They don't teach you anything about systems. They just tell you. They teach you everything you need to know essentially about financial securities, which is what is required. That's the subject matter of the capital markets. And so I spent 4 months. I took 4 months off of a consulting engagement just to pursue the Canadian securities course so that I could learn the domain knowledge that I needed. Two, I learned the domain knowledge, I learned the domain knowledge here that I needed to be able to qualify for this job right here. There's no way I would have been able to qualify for this job without attaining my Canadian securities course. So if you're interested in domain knowledge, choose a domain, the domain that you're interested in, find the institution in your country that teaches that domain, and consider not necessarily getting, I did get certified. So I passed my exam, my Canadian securities course exam. And so I am certified with the CSE, but you don't necessarily need to go that deep. The other thing I'll show you is that in my education section, one of the other things that I've done in my own career is in the continuing education section here, you'll see that I have also done an enterprise risk management, which gets much deeper into risk management in the capital markets, because I really wanted to understand the domain very well. So that's probably the best strategy for you to pursue that.
Thank you. Emal, I will keep going until you tell me it's
Sure.
it's enough.
Yeah. We're
Thank you.
still good. We're still good.
Thank you. We have two, and I think this is it. After these two, I think this is it. Or at least I'll make sure of it. The next one, of course, it starts by thanking you for the fantastic session. So this BA recently transitioned into a new career as a VA and into Salesforce. Any suggestions? Again, I think you can see it's a recurring question. Any suggestions in terms of how to reach success, given the fact that the key motivators of this person are income and fulfillment?
If you're looking for income and fulfillment, first of all, your decision to go after Salesforce is probably a good one. What I would say is that for Salesforce consultants, once you've kind of mastered a certain area of Salesforce, probably Sales Cloud and plus something, the best income boosting strategy is to go freelance. And so master the tool to the point where you think you can deliver value, and then consider going freelance.
Okay, thank you. The last one, any advice on to get started with the ECBA certification for a BA with no experience but exposed to the energy sector for roughly 1.5 years, and the healthcare sector, if I'm reading right, for 22 years?
So the question is specifically about whether I have any tips for them to study for the ECBA.
And yes, and I'm assuming it's correlated on how to jump into the BA career. I'm assuming that the ECBA certification is more of another weapon, if I may call it that.
Yeah, so the ECBA is the entry certificate. It's the first certificate, or the first certification you would get as an analyst. To qualify, I don't believe that there's any entry. I don't believe that there's any experience requirements for the ECBA. We can do a quick check on that, but we essentially, to get your ECBA certification, you would have to study the BA BOK and write an exam to get certified. The value, you'll notice that all of the certification options, you'll notice that I'm not certified by the IIBA, but that's because I started my career before the IIBA was around. If I was starting my career now, very strong chance that I would get IIBA certified in the ECBA, or I would try to get my way up to the CVAP if I could. The value of the certification is that it can, if you don't have the educational background, it can give you reputationally, it can look good on your profile, and A lot of large organizations tend to look more favorably upon people who have certifications than those who don't. You really have to kind of think about the trade-offs that you're making, because studying for certifications takes effort and time away from other things. If you need the reputation, it may be worth it. If you don't need the reputation, it may not be worth it. So for me to pursue my CBAP now wouldn't be the best use of my time, because I already have the educational background and the experience to land work. But if I didn't, that reputation now becomes much more important. So try to gauge where you're at. If you're at the beginning of your career, then you should strongly consider getting your ECBA certification and starting to move up. It'll not only will it get you a little bit acquainted, but it will also possibly give you some confidence. The thing I would say is that if you're looking at ECBA certification, keep this picture in mind, right? Your ECBA certification is what the IIBA considers level 1. That's our stage 1 kind of cuts across that and the CCBA quite a bit. And so you want to make sure that you're possibly getting some formal education so you can actually learn how to do the skills that we talked about at stage 1 as well. Those skills that you want to kind of really focus on are the ones that we had on the very first slide that we had. Okay, try to master these at this stage of your career. And once you're able to, once you have the opportunity to start working on projects, then you want to start looking at these skills. But we also have, I mean, if I was to show you our page for what our stage 2 course looks like, it would look something like this. So you can kind of start to get an idea of what a program like that really should look like. So I'll really just quickly pull that up for you. So you can see educationally, there's certification and then there's education. And educationally, you want to make sure that at stage 2 of your career that you're learning these basic skills. And our BAPC course can help you with that in a very, I want to say very practical way, because we actually give you the tools and we ask you to produce deliverables using enterprise class tools to do this. So certification is for reputation, but you want to make sure that you're actually getting the skills themselves, which are really more important when it comes to delivering value.
Thank you so much, Emal. That was great. Can I ask, is this a good time to run the poll?
Yeah, for sure. Let's do it. Let's do it.
Okay, so Emal is asked to run a poll, and folks, contrary to the Q&A, the pool is completely anonymous. So feel free to be honest. It's just one question, and I think it's going to be interesting to check the results. Okay, so here we go.
All right, let's run a quick poll. And I've spoken a little bit about my own responses, but I'd like to get a sense of where we're at. We don't see your answers, totally anonymous. We just see the end results of the poll.
Just give it a little bit more time to make sure that everyone is able to answer. And meanwhile, Emal, I want to thank you again for the great session. I wouldn't mind staying here. I know you can't. I wouldn't mind staying here for another hour, but that's why, as you have graciously informed us, there is indeed you and your company will be hosting a session in 1 month's time. So I think it's a great
absolutely. And the other thing I would encourage folks to do is sign up. Definitely sign up for that. But if you go to our live sessions, you'll notice that we have a live session happening basically almost every week. And so next week I'll be speaking with Yulia. The week after that, I'll be speaking at the BA Excellence Conference that's hosted by EPAM Systems. And eventually we're going to release our AI playbook. And so we're working with another consulting company called Herd Consulting out of the UK that to essentially bring AI best practices to business analysts. So there's a ton of stuff going on. Make sure you, at the very least, I would say that make sure you sign up for day one. And you can do that just by right now going to bablocks.com and putting in your name and your email address, and that registers you.
That's great. That's great. Thanks, Emal. Okay, I'm going to close the poll, and very interesting results. Let me share it. We have a tie, ladies and gentlemen. We have a tie for first place.
Wow. Let's take a look.
Yes.
4% of the people are interested in the job title. And there's a tie between income and personal satisfaction. And I'll tell you that that's been exactly, that matches my experiences perfectly, because I've known people who are interested in job title and they have a totally different career strategy. But if you're interested in, personally, the first decade of my life, I was driven purely by income. I'd invested a lot in my education, right? 7 years of university education is not cheap. I invested a lot in it and I needed to get a return on my income. So I was very income driven. And it wasn't really until I started hitting stage 3 of my career where I'm now thinking, okay, personal income isn't enough. I need personal satisfaction. And so I can afford to now pursue personal satisfaction. So poll results are very encouraging. I think that that's, I think we're all kind of on the same page here. So make sure you register. And I would say that I want to thank you, Joao, for hosting the session. And I want to thank you, James, for suggesting the topic, because this topic really was kind of a big suggestion that came from James. So I appreciate you both having me on.
Thank you. Thank you so much for this great session, Emal. Looking forward for July 15th. And thank you to everyone that joined today and resisted 17 minutes past the hour. Thank you so much. And we will see you on the next one. Have a great day. Thank you.
Take care, everyone.